Welcome back to Ancient Wisdom, Modern Edge, the podcast where we break down Sun Tzu's ancient text, The Art of War, and find its lessons in our world today. I'm Ben.
And I'm Anna. Last week we covered Chapter 1, Laying Plans. It was all about calculation and preparation before you even think about making a move.
Exactly, but today we get into Chapter 2, Waging War. This is where the rubber meets the road. Sun Tzu stops talking about planning and starts talking about the real, tangible cost of conflict.
And let me tell you, he does not mince words. He basically opens with a giant price tag.
He really does. I'll read the first part. Sun Tzu says, "In the operations of war, where there are in the field 1,000 swift chariots and 100,000 mail-clad soldiers, with provisions enough to carry them 1,000 li, the expenditure will reach the total of 1,000 ounces of silver per day. Such is the cost of raising an army of 100,000 men."
1,000 ounces of silver per day? In modern terms, this is what the startup world calls the burn rate. It's the cash you are spending every day just to keep the lights on. He's saying, before you launch your big project, your new product, or your marketing campaign, do you understand the daily cost? Not just the big ticket items, but the glue and paint, the small incidental costs that bleed you dry.
He immediately follows up with the consequences of ignoring that burn rate. He says, if victory takes too long, men's weapons will grow dull and their ardor will be damped. And if you lay siege, you will exhaust your strength.
That is so true in a corporate setting. Think about a project that just drags on and on. The team was excited at the kickoff, but 6 months past the deadline, their ardor is damped. They're burned out. Their tools, their weapons are outdated. The initial passion is gone. You've exhausted your team's strength and morale.
And then comes the knockout punch. He says when you're in that weakened state, weapons dull, treasure spent, other chieftains will spring up to take advantage of your extremity.
Oh, the competitors are circling. You've been so focused on this one all-consuming price war with your main rival that you didn't notice 2 smaller agile startups just ate your lunch. They saw you were bleeding cash and morale, and they pounced. Sun Tzu is basically saying, a long fight doesn't just weaken you, it makes you a target.
Which leads perfectly into his next very blunt point. He says, "Thus we have heard of stupid haste in war. Cleverness has never been seen associated with long delays."
I love that. Stupid haste. We've all been there, rushing a product to market, full of bugs. But he's saying even that is sometimes better than clever delay. In business, we call this analysis paralysis. We spend so much time planning, perfecting, and strategizing that we never actually do anything. By the time our clever plan is ready, the market has moved on.
He doubles down on this, saying there is no instance of a country having benefited from prolonged warfare.
It's a pure cost with no upside over time. And this next line is key for any leader. It is only one who is thoroughly acquainted with the evils of war that can thoroughly understand the profitable way of carrying it on. You have to understand the absolute worst case scenario, the burnout, the cost, the market loss, before you can figure out how to run a project or campaign efficiently and profitably. You have to respect the downside.
So, how do you do it profitably? Sun Tzu offers a solution. First, he says, the skillful soldier does not raise a second levy. Neither are his supply wagons loaded more than twice. Then he says, bring war material with you from home, but forage on the enemy. Thus, the army will have food enough for its needs.
Okay, foraging on the enemy. In 2023, this doesn't mean raiding your competitor's cafeteria. Chuckles. It's about leveraging external resources. Why build a new software tool from scratch when you can use an existing open source one? That's foraging. Why spend millions on R&D to solve a problem a smaller company has already solved? Acquire them. That's foraging.
He even quantifies it. He says 1 cartload of the enemy's provisions is equivalent to 20 of one's own.
The ROI is massive. Think about it. Learning from a competitor's public mistakes is infinitely cheaper than making those same mistakes yourself. Hiring a key employee from a rival company gives you their expertise and insight instantly. You're not just gaining something, you're saving the immense cost of developing it internally. You're foraging for talent and information.
He also talks about the flip side of not foraging. He describes how funding a war from a distance impoverishes the people, drives up prices, and drains the economy.
That's the internal cost again. If all your company's resources are tied up in one long, expensive war, what happens to everything else? The R&D budget gets slashed, there are no raises or bonuses, the company culture sours. You're draining your own people's substance to fund the fight.
So, we know the goal is a quick victory, and the method is to use the enemy's resources. But how do you get your own people to do it? Sun Tzu says, now, in order to kill the enemy, our men must be roused to anger. That there may be advantage from defeating the enemy, they must have their rewards.
This is pure management 101. First, motivation. Roused to anger sounds aggressive, but in a business context, it's about creating a sense of urgency and a common goal. It's rallying the team against a challenge, not a person. Second, incentives. They must have their rewards. If the team successfully launches the product or wins the big contract, they need to be recognized for it, bonuses, promotions, or even just a sincere public thank you. People need to see the upside of the fight.
Then he gives a very specific example about capturing chariots, rewarding the first soldiers who do, and then repurposing the enemy's chariots and soldiers. He ends with this. This is called using the conquered foe to augment one's own strength.
This is the most brilliant point about mergers and acquisitions I've ever heard. When you acquire another company, the conquered foe, don't just gut it for its assets. Reward the people who made the deal happen. Then substitute your flags, rebrand, but mingle and use the chariots. Integrate their best technology and processes with your own. And most importantly, the captured soldiers should be kindly treated and kept. Don't fire their talented people. Make them part of your team. You augment your own strength by successfully integrating theirs.
He wraps it all up with two final powerful statements. First, in war, then let your great object be victory, not lengthy campaigns.
Be decisive. Know what victory looks like and go for it. Don't get bogged down in the process. Don't fall in love with the fight itself. The goal is the win, not the struggle.
And the final line of the chapter, thus it may be known that the leader of armies is the arbiter of the people's fate, the man on whom it depends whether the nation shall be in peace or in peril.
Wow, no pressure, right? But it's true. A CEO, a project lead, a manager, your decisions to enter a conflict, how you manage it, and when you end it, determine the fate of your team and your organization. It dictates whether they operate in a state of peace, creativity, stability, and growth, or in peril, burnout, anxiety, and decline. The responsibility is immense.
So, Chapter 2 is a sobering look at the true cost of any conflict. It's not about glory, it's about economics, efficiency, and speed.
Absolutely. The big takeaways for me are know your burn rate, value speed over perfect plans, and always look for ways to forage, to use the resources and knowledge that are already out there instead of reinventing the wheel.
Well said. That's all the time we have for today. Join us next time as we dive into Chapter 3, Attack by Stratagem.
That's where he famously says it's best to win without fighting at all. I can't wait to unpack that one. Thanks for listening to Ancient Wisdom, Modern Edge.